which one should we do? Let's do a dark one. Blam. I mean, don't you want to eat that? They're so cute. I'm Samantha Seneviratne. I'm here in the NYT cooking studio kitchen for Cooking 101 Cakes. Today I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of cake baking. I'm going to give you 3 recipes for a sheet cake, a layer cake, and cupcakes. I'm hoping that I can make the process as easy as possible for you and just keep it fun, because it's cake, it's supposed to be fun. A cake is made up usually of flour, fat, sugar, eggs, and some kind of leavener. Sometimes there's not leavener. I'm going to show you butter cakes today, and those all rely on some leavener. The cakes I'm doing today, I use both butter and oil because I like the combination. I like what they do in cakes. Oil does a slightly better job of coating proteins to inhibit gluten formation, so it makes a softer cake, or like a cake that has a longer shelf life. Whereas butter makes a really delicious cake. So if you combine them, which is what I'm gonna do today, you sort of get the best of both worlds. You don't need every one of these items, but this is a good basic place to start. So I have my muffin tins and my cake pans. Start with 3 9-inch, and then you pretty much can make everything. Aluminum, ideally, thin aluminum, no coatings of any kind. Scale, of course, so that you can measure effectively. Dry measure and wet measures. Spatulas, bench scrapers, knives for slicing. This is a surprising ingredient, but it makes scooping batter into muffin tins so much easier. Cooling racks, they do matter. It's nice to get a good circulation around your cakes. It's also, having 2 makes it really easy to flip your cakes out of the pan and then right side them up again. And then if you're feeling splurgy, we get over here into a stand mixer. That just makes it really easy to mix while you add things at the same time. And a lovely, what do they call these? I just call it my spinner, but I don't know if that's right. It just makes frosting your cake so much easier because you can sort of spin it while you hold still and get beautiful sides. Not essential, but fun to have. We are gonna start with a yellow sheet cake. I think it's a great introduction into cakes. It's very, very simple. You don't need a lot of special ingredients or equipment. This is a 13 by 9-inch pan. It's aluminum. I like aluminum pans for cake baking because they heat up quickly, they don't retain a lot of heat, and they cook pretty evenly. You don't want to use a dark colored pan because that can encourage overbrowning on the edges. You don't want to use a glass pan because glass retains heat for too long and that's going to dry out your cake. You really just want a simple aluminum thin pan. The one thing I can tell you about making beautiful cakes though is you really want these nice sharp edges. There are so many cake pans out there that have sort of slanted edges or rounded edges, and in my opinion that just leads to less attractive cakes. We're gonna butter it first. I like to use a pastry brush, which I know is a little fiddly. You don't have to, but I just think you can really get into all the corners nicely when you use a pastry brush. Okay, so now I've got it well greased in the flour. So what I like to do is just dump a lot in there, which seems weird, and then kick it around. If it were just butter, it would just be too slippery and your cake doesn't crawl up the sides of the pan well enough, and you're not gonna get quite as much lift. If I were at home, I would do this over the garbage can so that your cake pan doesn't have any excess in it. And now I've just made this humongous mess, which I will clean up. Let's talk about measuring flour. The easiest and most efficient way and most accurate way to measure your flour is going to be with a scale. You measure your flour, you can tare the scale, then you can put your sugar in, tear the scale, and then you can keep going like that. So it's a much easier way to mix all your dry ingredients together. If you don't have a scale, just make sure that you're measuring the right way. If you go into your bin and scoop, you're gonna pack your flour in. It's gonna be very heavy. You're gonna have extra flour in your cake, which is gonna lead to a sad dry cake. 147, that's like a couple tablespoons extra. So you wanna make sure, aerate your flour a little bit, scoop, drop, scoop, drop, scoop, drop, level. And that's your flour. So you can feel it's much less compacted than if you go in with I know Ina does it that way, and I watch her do it, and I don't understand how she has such beautiful cakes. But I think this is the most accurate way to measure flour with a dry measure cup. I think we're looking for like 128 grams as a cup of flour. 128. On the nose.
Wow.
We are starting with room temperature ingredients, ideally between 65 and 75 degrees. AP flour, all-purpose flour. Some people think that bleached flour makes for softer cakes. I don't think it really matters. This is granulated sugar. Don't reduce the sugar because that is going to affect the moisture in your cake, not only the sweetness. Then we have our leavener. This is baking powder. There's double-acting baking powder. That means that it reacts to both liquid and heat, so it's going to react twice. It is going to create gas, and that gas is going to get trapped in the air bubbles that you create by creaming your butter and sugar, or in this case, mixing our butter and sugar. It's going to get trapped in there and then expand and lift our cake. Salt. Salt's super important. I just use kosher salt. Some people like fine sea salt because it dissolves more, but I keep kosher salt for cooking, so I also use it for baking. That's all my dry ingredients, and I'm going to actually mix them. If your leavener isn't mixed properly, it could rise uneven. Now what we're gonna do is divide our milk. It's 1.5 cups, but we're gonna put half a cup over here. We're dividing it because we're gonna add it in 2 different parts. Save this 1 cup to go with our butter in our dry mixture, and the rest of the ingredients can go together. So I have my half cup liquid, I have my eggs at room temperature. Eggs give your cake structure. You know, it's like when the eggs coagulate, your cake sets. So without eggs, you basically just have pudding. Oil is great for cakes. It keeps them really tender. It also extends the shelf life. Butter is great for cakes because it tastes really good. We're getting the best of both worlds by combining them. Vanilla goes in, pure vanilla extract. We mix that up, and then that's gonna go in a little bit later. And now we're gonna do this fun reverse creaming technique. And I have to give credit to Rose Levy-Berenbaum. She was the one who popularized it in her book, The Cake Bible. Reverse creaming is when you add, instead of doing the sugar and the butter together, you add the butter to your flour mixture. And you do that in order to coat the flour in some of the butter so that you develop less gluten and therefore have a nice, soft, velvety cake. So these are cut up into cubes so that they come to room temperature quickly. Also, the way to know that it's room temperature, 65 to 75 degrees, is to touch it. That's the really easiest way to know. And it should be sort of smushy, but not greasy. Greasy would be softened butter. So now we're gonna mix these together until the butter is incorporated. It'll be sort of sandy.
Every time.
You don't want to mix it into dough, so stop before that happens. It's like this, oh God, it's so nice. Because it's just like it's the perfect texture. And now we're gonna add that 1 cup of milk. It's gonna help butter coat evenly, and then it's gonna help everything incorporate later. So room temperature. At this point, we don't have to worry too much about mixing it too hard because we've already mixed in the butter and sort of protected the flour. We do need to build a little bit of gluten up because otherwise the cake will just be too crumbly. But this method makes it pretty foolproof. So now this looks beautiful. We can add our liquid. And everything's gonna mix in so nice because everything is room temperature. For this recipe, what gives a yellow cake that beautiful yellow color is extra egg yolks. Some people like pie dough, raw pie dough, not me. But cake batter, we are a lick the bowl family. I even like the sound of it. Doesn't it sound so good? I just love cake. I'm gonna spread it out evenly. I think it's a good practice. Some cakes, more than others, loosen out and flatten out. So it's just a good habit to always be mindful of spreading it out evenly every time. 350 degrees, middle rack, 25 to 30 minutes. Be well in there, stay warm. Thank you. Now it's time to make our frosting. So this is a variation of an American buttercream, which is just usually powdered sugar and butter and salt and maybe like a little bit of milk just to smooth things out. I don't love American buttercream. I just think it's too sweet and a little one-dimensional. So this is a chocolate sour cream buttercream. So we're gonna start by mixing together our chocolate and our butter. And this chocolate's a little bit warm. It's no big deal. It might melt my butter a little bit, but we'll just refrigerate it if we need to. I don't know why I'm trying not to make a mess. There's there are a million different kinds of frosting. There's Italian meringue buttercream, there's 7-minute frosting, there's cream cheese frosting. This is a very easy, delicious frosting. Now we can add our powdered sugar. And now we're gonna add our sour cream. And I would do this a little at a time. Sometimes if the sour cream is it's too cold, you might get a little bit of beading in the chocolate, so you'll have these like tiny little chocolate pieces. The other thing you can do is if you get those little beads, heat up your bowl. So if you have a kitchen torch, blast the outside of the bowl a little bit while you're mixing it, or a hairdryer would work too. But that's it. That's the easiest frosting. Isn't it a lovely texture and color? Actually, she might be done. Some visual cues to look out for is separating from the edges of the pan. When you bake it, it's gonna puff up and expand, and then when it's done, it's gonna shrink back down a tiny bit. Moist crumbs or totally clean, and you're good to go. So this came out totally clean. Okay, so you want your cake to cool on a rack for about 10 minutes. You can see that it's pulled away from the sides. It looks great. It's still warm, so it is still delicate. A sheet cake, you could just leave it in here. I like to flip it out because I think that the steam makes the bottom a little soggy. Let's see. Then, yay! You can see a little bit, but no one's ever gonna see that. It doesn't matter. In fact, this is the part that I like to eat. But I'll do that off camera. So now I'm gonna flip it back over. It is kind of important, not as much for sheet cakes, to flip them back over, because if there is a dome and you leave it flipped over, it could crack as it cools. If you make your frosting and it's very cold in your house, it could seize up a little bit before you spread it. You can just pop it in the microwave for 5 to 10 seconds just to bring it back to looseness again. And if your house is very hot, it might be very loose, so you can pop it in the fridge. It's a more casual cake, right? So we can just be chill about it. Ideally, start in the center, push outwards, don't go all the way to the edge, and don't mess with it too much. I've been waiting to eat this. I'm really excited. It's moist, but it's not gummy in any way. It's sweet, but not too sweet, and it's lovely and soft. It's just velvety and uniform. There's no tunnels, there's no holes, it's not dry. It's just like lovely and dense, but not heavy in a great way. It's layer cake time, and we're gonna start with 3 9-inch cake pans. Butter. I'm doing it the fussy way. You can do it with paper towel, you can do it with the butter stick wrapper. It feels fun and fancy to use a pastry brush. Okay, so we'll do the same method, and we'll do it without making such a mess this time. And then I like to just tip it into the next one. And you can reuse this flour. Okay, let's make these cakes. Fun part. So I'm gonna divide out 1/2 cup of my milk and save this 1 cup to go in with my dry ingredients. We're also using only egg whites for this recipe, no yolks. So that means our cake is also going to be white. It's not gonna be yellow. And it's going to be a little bit lighter. It's just gonna have a little bit less fat in it. So this one uses cake flour. Cake flour is more finely milled. It's a softer, usually made from a softer wheat. Because it's so finely milled, it gelatinizes at a lower point. So your cake is gonna set a little faster, which means that it will hold things in suspension better It leads to a cake that's a little lighter and a little finer. It also has a really lovely smell, so I love using it. Because we're doing the reverse creaming method, we're gonna get a chance to mix this stuff up pretty well. I like to just give it a little mix. Okay. Put our butter in, salted butter. Okay, so I'll show you the texture. It's lovely, it's evenly distributed, it's sandy. Looks so nice. And now we can add our milk. 1 cup. We don't have to stress about overmixing. Isn't that so nice? Now we can add our liquid ingredients, a little bit at a time, just so that it incorporates well. Okay, this looks gorgeous. Okay, now we can fold in our sprinkles, which is the most fun part. Honestly, you just want the really funny, bright ones. These ones, these like really bright, artificial colored ones, look gorgeous in the finished cake. Fold those in, and now we can divide our batter. What I would do is tear the scale and just keep track of how much you put in. We're gonna start with 600 grams. That seems like roughly a third. This is my favorite part. That's not true, they're all my favorite parts. So I mostly hold the spatula. It's sort of what you do when you're frosting too. Hold the spatula in basically the same place. Move the pan, not the spatula, for the most part. Great, okay, so these go into 350-degree oven, ideally in the middle rack if you can fit them. If not, you can stagger them. Just make sure that when you stagger them, they're not right on top of one another. 1, 2, 3, and then if your oven, I don't do a lot of rotating, I just find it fiddly and it's annoying. But if your oven is really uneven, then you're gonna wanna rotate them. So just rotate the spots and rotate them around. Our cakes have been in for about 22 minutes and I'm just gonna check them and see. Sometimes I like to just like take the smush off and then inspect it on my finger. Oh, no. But so the question is that a moist crumb or is that batter? You take it off the toothpick and put it onto your finger, you can sort of have a better look at it. And I would say those are moist crumbs. So I'm gonna say that they're done. I'm happy with these because they didn't dome, but don't beat yourself up too much if they dome, because the truth is different ovens bake things differently and it's really hard to control that factor. You know, some people suggest cake strips. You can put paper on the outside or foil, or even you can buy cake strips that go around the edge, and that's sort of supposed to make it so the edges don't cook faster than the center, so that you get nice, even, flat cakes. If you find that your cakes dome, it's probably your oven's fault, not your fault. Get the cake strips and see if that helps. But this oven did a great job. So you can absolutely make cakes in advance, which is essential for party planning. Chill them completely, wrap them individually with plastic wrap really well, and then I like to freeze them. I think freezing is the best way to just lock the baked good in where it is at its peak freshness. When you're ready to frost them, you can take them out and let them thaw at room temperature. Proceed with frosting and serving. Oh yeah, so now we're gonna let these cool in the pan for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll flip them over. And again, you wanna flip them over and then flip them back, because if you have a dome and you leave it on the other side, it could crack. You wanna let them rest on the flat side always. They're too hot. I shouldn't have flipped them out so soon. You know what, actually, it would be good to talk about what to do. So we're rushing a little, and I flipped this cake out while it was too hot. Absolutely, my bad. We're gonna take an offset spatula, and we're just gonna cut this off. Cut this out. And then just take this piece out and just put it back in. It's not perfect. We're gonna frost over it. It's gonna be fine, just fill in the holes. It's good to show that, right? We're not perfect, we're just people. So while our cakes are cooling, we can make our cream cheese frosting. You do wanna make sure that your cream cheese and your butter are really, really, really room temperature, otherwise they won't incorporate fully and you get these little beads of cream cheese. So sometimes if I know that I'm gonna make cream cheese frosting, I just leave my cream cheese out on my countertop overnight. That's a sound. Now powdered sugar. I use a lot less confectioner sugar than the standard cream cheese frosting. I just like to have the cream cheese be the flavor you sort of taste first. You can up the sugar though if you think it's not sweet enough. My dad would think it was not sweet enough, so you get to decide. You can absolutely make this ahead of time if you want to pop it in the fridge after you make it. It is gonna firm up a little bit and be a little more tricky to spread, so before you use it, I might just run the mixer through it a few times just to lighten it up again. I think salt is important in baked goods, even though the cream cheese is salty. Yeah, such a good texture. It is a little bit loose, so I'm just gonna set this aside at room temperature while my cakes finish cooling. We'll see. If it's a little loose, we might have to chill it. We'll see how it is when it comes time to build. So my cakes are completely cool, and my frosting is pretty soft, but it's good because it's gonna make it really easy to spread. And I think the best course of action would be a crumb coat, so I'll show you how to do that. My cakes are also, I can show you, they're pretty flat, they're nice and even, so I'm not gonna trim them. Pieces of paper underneath, so we can slip them out and keep our plate relatively clean. 1 cup of frosting in between. And I do think it's important to measure this just so that the layers are all really nice and even. And then just move from the center out to an even layer. And I always leave a little bit of a border because I think once you add the other layers, it sort of squishes out anyway. Now we'll put our next layer on. I'm gonna do flat side up. Look at it from the side, make sure she's nice and even. Make sure you're working from the center out so that you don't have a mound in the center that's higher than the edges. How's that look? Is she even? This cake is not like especially crummy. Some cakes are more crummy than others, but let's make it nice. So you wanna just make sure you separate out some frosting so you're not going back in with your spatula and adding crumbs to your final coat. So if you had cut the dome off or cut that top layer off, you're gonna be exposing more crumbs. So then when you do that, a crumb coat becomes essential. This is just about covering the cake with a layer of frosting, sealing in its freshness, and making sure that we don't get crumbs in the final part. This part doesn't have to look perfect. I don't like to put cakes unwrapped in the fridge, but because none of the actual cake is exposed, it's sort of protected in there, and we're not gonna keep it in there for a super long time. Fridge is fine. Give it like 20 minutes in the fridge, half an hour in the fridge for that to all firm up. So my cake has been in the freezer for about 10 minutes. Now that it's cold, it's not gonna slide around as much and we can get a nice finish on her.
And your strategy here is start at the top and push it?
That's what I do. I start at the top and push it to the edges. If you're working in a really hot kitchen, just pop it in and out of the fridge as you need to. I don't like it when you can see the cake layers through the frosting, so that my only goal is to just get enough on the side that you don't see that anymore. I'm just gonna go for it. We're gonna make a huge mess, but it's gonna be fun. You can also set this in a rim baking sheet so that your sprinkles are sort of contained. What's baking without a little mess? I think they go hand in hand. I mean, I think she's pretty perfect. My layers are nice and even. The sprinkles are beautifully distributed. Looks like a nice, tender crumb. Let's see how it tastes. I love this kind of cake. It's the reverse creaming that makes the texture so lovely. It's so lovely in your mouth. It's sort of velvety. It's really soft and velvety and delicious. Confetti cake is basically the most nostalgic, dreamiest, most fun cake there is. So we just did the hardest cake of the batch, and now we're gonna transition to the easiest cake. We're gonna give ourselves a break. These are chocolate cupcakes. We're gonna do it all in 2 bowls, but no mixer. We can do it by hand. All of the recipes that we've done up to this point can be baked as cupcakes. You just wanna fill it 3/4 of the way full and make as many cupcakes as you can. This will give you 12 cupcakes. I'm not reverse creaming here, just for simplicity's sake. Cupcakes to me just feel a little bit more casual. Okay, let's make cupcakes. So we're just gonna mix all the dry ingredients in a large bowl. Natural cocoa powder, as opposed to Dutch process, baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Since we're not creaming anything, and we can just add the sugars in as well. Make sure you get all those little brown sugar lumps out. So now we're gonna whisk our wet ingredients together. So that's my buttermilk, oil, vanilla. For this recipe, room temperature is not as important because I'm not working with room temperature butter that I'm trying to keep in a certain state. Here we're just working with oil, so you could use a cold egg if you had it. Mix that together. I might even do this all in one bowl, you know. I did it this way so we could just be so certain that we're mixing everything well. And now we just whisk this together. So simple. We'll just go through it with the spatula to make sure. Yeah, looks good. I have my lined muffin tins. Really cute liners, which is fun. I'm using an ice cream scoop. You could use a cookie scoop because I think it just makes dividing it so much easier. You want your liners to be about 3/4 of the way full. I think a great cupcake is evenly distributed in the liner and bakes pretty flat. Like it'll dome in the oven and then pretty much flatten out. The honest truth is that's got a lot to do with your oven. Now we get this into a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 18 minutes. So my cupcakes are out of the oven. They're totally cool. You do not want to start frosting them when they're warm at all because the frosting will just slide off. So this is a really simple peanut butter buttercream. So we are going to start with peanut butter and butter. This is conventional sweetened peanut butter. I always bake with regular peanut butter. I always eat natural peanut butter but bake with conventional peanut butter. I just find that it performs more evenly. Everything is homogenized and your frosting will set properly. Salted butter at room temperature. Mix that together. This frosting is delicious if you like peanut butter. It's a little sweet, but I think the sweetness actually goes pretty well with the chocolate. The chocolate cupcakes themselves aren't crazy sweet. Vanilla extract and salt. Cupcakes are cool, frosting is ready. I have these fun chocolate pearls. I just think they're delicious and adorable. I think a scoop is the easiest way to do this. You can just knock some frosting on. Or we can even go so cute, right? And so easy. I gave you a little extra frosting in case you want to try to pipe it. Usually if you're gonna pipe it, you need more frosting. Using an offset spatula, center out, always center out. Rotate it in my hand a little bit. So that's gonna go in there. Mix the pearls or sprinkles. This is my favorite thing to do because it takes 2 seconds and you don't have to dirty any more tools. Boom, done. They're light, but they're chocolatey, and the frosting is salty in a good way. And the pearls are extra, but really add something delightful. We did it. We made 3 different kinds of beautiful cake. A lovely, tender, melt-in-your-mouth yellow sheet cake, a beautiful white confetti cake with cream cheese frosting, and these lovely, fun little chocolate peanut butter cupcakes. Never be scared of cake. Cake is only fun and joy. So have a good time and make more cake. You can find all of these recipes and more Cooking 101 on the New York Times Cooking app.